Meeting open. Bit of a changing of the guard, of course, so we'll see how we go. As interim administrator, I do advise that am bound to declare conflicts of interest and potential conflicts of interest. Welcome to country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as the keepers of the traditions, cultures and stories of a proud people. I'd ask you to all stand for the reading of the prayer. Let us in silence pray or reflect upon our responsibilities to the people of Ipswich. We meet today to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly and to make decisions that promote the common good. Thank you. Apologies and leave of absences, nil. Condolences, nil. Tributes, nil. Presentation of petitions, nil. Presentations and deputations, nil. Public participation, nil. Confirmation of the minutes. I resolve that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 10th of December 2019 be confirmed. Merrill, nil. Declarations of interest in matters on the agenda, and I do have one. The conflict of interest is that I have or could reasonably be taken to a perceived conflict of interest in item 25, whatever the title of that one is. The nature of the perceived interest is that the recommended tenderer is a member of the Queensland Futures Institute, which I am the managing director of, and I do confirm that as there is no personal or financial benefit to me, I'll participate in the meeting in relation to the matter. Item M, business outstanding, matters lying on the table to be dealt with, nil. Reception and consideration of committee reports, nil. And then we'll move to officers' reports. The first is the Regional Arts Development Fund, the RADF grants application. Now, I know that this is a little bit unusual, that we haven't had committee meetings and we're going straight into a council meeting. We do have a new layout also, so officers will actually treat this a little bit like a committee meeting, and that we will actually have our senior officers and officers presenting the detail of those items. So, who's the first one, Ben?
Morning.
Good morning.
So the first report, as you've recognised, is the Regional Arts Development Fund grant applications. Take the report as read. Happy to discuss. There are 3 applications, of which the RADF committee have made recommendations on.
Mate, I wasn't sure if you were serious or were you having a go at me when I read about the Legends of Cocky Jerry Jar project. Anyhow. Okay, so you're happy to run with that? Okay. Okay, I resolve that we approve the funding of $6,100 to Fusion Arts towards the development and presentation of the junior musical, The Little Mermaid, as outlined in the report by the Community Grants Coordinator dated 9th of December 2019. The Council approved funding of $5,000 to Eugene Gilfetter towards stage 1 of the Legends of Cocky Jerry Jar project, as outlined in the report by the Community Grants Coordinator dated 19th of December 2019. That Council approved funding of $8,400 to that production company towards the failure to launch creative development project, as outlined in the report by the Community Grants Coordinator dated 9th of December 2019. Item 2, Community Donations Report.
Through the Chair, this is standard procedure reporting on Council's community donations program. The report captures all those donations that have been provided, as well as those that have come through as at December 2019.
Okay. No, thank you. I resolve that the report be received and the contents noted. Item 3, community funding and support policy.
Thank you, Chair. This is, I suppose, an update to previous policy. So the recommendations are to repeal a number of existing policies that relate to community funding and support, and to replace those with an updated policy capturing the current intent of these programs. This is an outcome of transformational projects, and it is a commitment from Council that's been endorsed by the executive leadership team also, to centralise and streamline the funding and support programs of Council. This is the first step towards that. It's important to note that listed in the report there is a timetable of how we intend to not only streamline but increase the transparency and the reporting nature of these programs. This is the first action. As I say, it's an adoption of a new policy, but you'll recognise there that continuing on from that, it will be the adoption of new procedures, a new framework, and further reports to Council, public reports to Council, as to how we continue to improve these processes. But the report itself is a repeal of previous policies and the adoption of a new policy.
The page 41, when we talk about community and other consultation, our consultation to date really is, well, it is internal. In something like this, is it something that we would actually go out and, because we are proposing significant changes, is there going to be, at what stage is there going to be some community engagement on these things?
Just,
page 5 to that.
yeah.
Under the heading Next Steps, number 4.
What
it
page?
articulates that in February and March this year, a community engagement process will be undertaken.
Okay. Yep.
So there will be external consultation.
Right.
So following the internal consultation, following the use of a consultant to provide us with some best practice advice on how to set this up, the recommendations of the team will then be used for community consultation.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So I resolve that the policy titled Community Grants and In-Kind Assistance Policy as detailed in Attachment 1 to the report by the Community Grants Coordinator dated 8th of January 2020 as per item number 13 of the City Management, Finance and Community Engagement Committee number 2018 in bracket 6 of 19th of June 2018 adopted at the Council meeting on 26th of June 2018 be repealed, that the policy titled Community Donations Policy as detailed in Attachment to the report by the Community Grants Coordinator dated 8th of January 2020 as per item number 4 of the Governance Committee number 2019 in brackets 12 of 3rd December 2019 adopted at the ordinary meeting, Council ordinary meeting on 10th of December 2019 be repealed. C, that the policy titles bursaries, scholarships and other funding for community purposes policy as detailed in Attachment 3 to the report by the Community Grants Coordinator dated 8th of January 2020 as per item number 4 of the Governance Committee number 2019 12 in brackets of 3rd of December 2019 adopted at the Council ordinary meeting on 10th of December 2019 be repealed. And D, that the policy titled Community Funding and Support Policy as detailed in Attachment 4 to the report by the Community Grants Coordinator dated 8th of January 2020 be adopted. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 4, Advocacy for Regionally Significant Projects Policy.
Thank you. Again, an outcome of the Business Transformation Program, Transformation Project 18. This is the adoption of a Advocacy for Regionally Significant Project Policy. This policy as well as the general procedure has been previously approved and endorsed by the Transformational Project Team, the Interim Management Committee, as well as the Executive Leadership Team. It's important to note again that this is one mechanism in a broader framework of how we approach advocacy in the organisation. This is the adoption of a policy. The policy really outlines, I suppose, the priorities of council in this space, and it sets some expectations as to the roles and responsibilities of officers, but also incoming council into the future. The procedure will be a sister component to this policy. That procedure will be adopted by the General Manager of Coordination and Performance in the near future. So those two things will work together, and they operate within a broader framework, which, as I mentioned before, has been previously supported and adopted by the Transformation Project Team as well as the IMC. But this report is specific to the adoption of this new policy.
Yeah, it's quite a significant policy, isn't it, when you think about the implications of this? And I know that the team, Tony, thank you, put a lot of work into the policy, and there's a few dry gullies that went up and came back down. So thanks for all your work, Tony, and you and your team doing that. And I think we'll be talking about some of those regionally significant policies, projects later on. So thank you all. I resolve that the advocacy for regionally significant projects policy be adopted. Item 5, the City Hearts CABS program.
Thank you. This is I suppose, a receive and note report, but it is a follow-up to a previous request of council to return information, legal advice with regard to the continuation in the interim of the City Heart CABS program, whilst a new model for that particular program is devised. And you'll note from the confidential attachment, the legal advice is basically giving it the green light that it can proceed.
Yes, yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for that. The result that the contents of the report by the Community Engagement and Development Manager dated 16th of January 2020 be noted. Item 6, Moore's Pocket Tivoli Sports Complex.
So this report is requesting the repeal of a previous commitment of council. When I say previous commitment, the commitment was given to proceed into discussions and I suppose negotiations for a perceived outcome. That has taken place. The advice of officers today, though, is that it's based on a number of factors, probably not in the best interest of council or the community to continue in that direction, and the report provides some explanations as to why.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where council was moving down a path. We started moving down that path some time ago under the previous council. We've had the opportunity to review and revisit that path, and now, as you're suggesting, this is it may not be beneficial to keep going in that path, so we've decided to put a halt to that. So not an easy decision, as I am aware that there are organisations in the community that there was an expectation created, but that said, we do have to make decisions on behalf of the community as a whole. So in that context, I resolve that the previous recommendations A and B as per item number 8 and adopted at Council Ordinary Meeting 30th of May 2017, refer to City Works, Parks, Sports and Environment Committee number 2017, 5 in brackets of 22 May 2017, be repealed. Item 7, delegation of powers to appoint 2 external independent members and nominate the chairperson to the Audit and Risk Management Committee. it's... Welcome.
Good morning. Chairperson, this follows on from the newly adopted Audit and Risk Management Charter that was adopted by Council in November. And that basically means we've got to appoint an additional member, but also the current chairperson comes to the end of his term soon. And the idea is therefore to appoint two members to the Audit Committee. And the report is to just formalise that process of giving yourself and the CEO the powers to go ahead with the appointment.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And I think this is again one of those things that we're just tying up, loose ends, because what we do want to do is ensure that we kick off with the elected council with a fully functioning audit and risk committee. This decision will allow the CEO and myself to actually to nominate those people and get the committee up and running. So that context, I resolved that the commencement of an external recruitment process for membership of the Audit and Risk Management Committee be noted, that the interim administrator and the Chief Executive Officer appoint two external independent members to the Audit and Risk Management Committee. Item C, that the interim administrator and the Chief Executive Officer nominate and appoint the chairperson upon the retirement of the current chair to the Audit and Risk Management Committee from the independent external members. And D, that the current chairperson be thanked for firstly serving from 2002 as an advisor, from 2010 as a full member, and then from 2018 as the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Management Committee, and for his contribution to the organisation. So thank you. Thank you for that. Item 8, the Human Rights Act. It's all an experiment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The commencement of the Human Rights Act 2019 on the 1st of January 2020 places an obligation on Council as a public entity to protect and promote human rights. This report recommends the adoption of a human rights policy and speaks to Council's intent and commitment to human rights and an amendment to the Complaints Management Framework to ensure compliance under the Act. There are 23 rights protected under the HRA that are highlighted in the report. It should also be noted that these are not absolute and may be subject under law to reasonable limits. There will be a further review process by the Legal and Governance area to identify other reports that will be impacted by this Act. So we're seeking for the...
It's a significant thing, isn't it? The adoption of the Act.
The adoption of the policy.
Sorry, the commencement of the Act, but also the adoption of the policy. But the commencement of the Act is a big step for Queensland. But yeah, I suspect there's going to be a whole lot of flow-on implications of that as we move forward. Okay, well, thank you. I resolve item A, that the policy titled Human Rights Act Policy as detailed in Attachment 1 be adopted. B, that the Complaints Management Framework be amended as outlined in Attachment 3. Thank you. The item 9, Monthly Performance Report, November 2019.
Okay, so this report details performance against key indicators. There are a couple of items of note. The rates revenue is lower than forecast growth. Commentary and analysis has been included regarding this. A budget amendment was processed in December to correct the waste utility charge pricing error. Town planning fees show an improved result but are still under budget year-to-date projections, with the revenue now being $1 million below the forecast model. Expensing of materials and services is also below projection, with drier conditions resulting in diminished service contracts or works not commencing. Capital revenue from developer contributions and donated assets continues to be less than projected. capital expenditure on the CBD project exceeded the monthly budget due to work being completed ahead of schedule. This will be addressed through budget and phasing amendments. Expenditure on other capital projects is 4.9 million below the forecast position. So our cash holdings are in line with forecasted cash balances. So that's pretty much the extent of the items of note. It is anticipated that the review of the year-to-date financial results will be reflected in a budget amendment in February.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Resolved that the report be received and the contents noted. Item 10, beverage supplies for Civic Centre, section 235, other exemptions, local government regulation.
So this report seeks to qualify a procurement action pertaining to sole providers that have been identified to service the Ipswich Civic Centre, specifically bar and canteen services for functions and events. There's provision under section 235A of the Local Government Act regulations to enter into proprietary arrangements to achieve the best value for money.
Yep.
The procurement branch has consulted with the Civic Centre extensively, who support the recommendations of this report.
Thank you. There's a lot of words here for soft drink. Okay. Right, okay, so I resolve that that council is satisfied under section 235A of the Local Government Regulation 2012 regulation that the exemption under section 235A of the regulation applies, and that Schweppes Australia, Coca-Cola and the Australian liquor marketers are the only suppliers reasonably available to it to provide beverages to the Ipswich Civic Centre for the following reason. Number one, Schweppes Australia and Coca-Cola are the manufacturer of a wide variety of beverages, and therefore purchasing directly through the supplier delivers the best value for money. Similarly, Australian liquor marketers are a wholesaler where council is able to purchase alcohol for the Ipswich City Centre at wholesale prices to achieve the best value for money and profit margins due to purchasing direct from the wholesaler. B, that council enter into a contract with Schweppes Australia, Coca-Cola and Australian liquor marketers for the provision of beverage supplies for a period of 3 years. C, that the CEO be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the contract to be executed by council and to do any other acts necessary to implement council's decision in accordance with section 13(3) in brackets of the Local Government Act 2009. Thank you. Item 11, regulatory searches, SciTech, another section 235, other exemptions, local government regulation 2012.
This report identifies a requirement to enter into a sole provider arrangement with SciTech, who are responsible for managing and preserving access to Queensland public records and public access to the archival collection and supporting advisory services. SciTech, a business area of the Department of Housing and Public Works, they're a one-stop shop for this business critical requirement.
I just query, and I don't know this, but isn't SciTech, aren't there other information providers like InfoTrack and those sort of things? Yeah, and they don't provide the same level of services?
It's my understanding that we really don't have any other alternative with this particular vendor, do we, officer?
Because I read the report.
Yeah.
There's no analysis provided of
No.
other potential providers
Not
like.
of the suite that they need, not of the full suite of what they
Okay.
need.
Yep.
And that's why one-stop shop, it's providing the full remit of what the area requires. So the recommendations stand.
Okay. Who's the? Sorry, Sylvia. I know you've stepped into the role. Jeff Keach, is he here? There he is. Jeff. Mate, just explain to me, because again, the report isn't really as detailed as you probably.
So this
Probably.
report would be put up by Richard?
Sorry, I think.
Procurement. This was a procurement.
Procurement, is it?
report.
Yeah.
Righto.
Myself, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, look, a couple of things. I think in terms of the report itself, it probably would have been useful just to have a little bit more information there about, because, again, part of the reason we run these things and in the lead up to the council, we're trialling different things, but as a councillor, it might be good to have a bit of a commentary on, while there's other providers, and we know there are because of the government's open data policy, they don't provide the full suite. And you know, part of the discussion could have been around, well, why aren't we splitting this up? Because it's a big number. It's a decent amount of money we're spending on this.
Barbara Clark here? No? Apologies, Barbara was the attending officer, which would have provided.
Oh, am I looking at the wrong one?
additional
Sorry,
information.
Jeff, I just threw you under the bus, didn't I?
That's all right.
It's all good.
Answer I would have for you, Mr.
Well, mate, you probably deserve it for something else, Jeff, so there you go.
That's all right. Sounds like it.
Yeah. Sorry about that, mate. Yeah, look, it's just, yeah, it's Richard, sorry, Richard White. Yeah, okay, so he's not here. But again, just to note, I suppose, and Sylvia, you might want to take us back, that because we are, this is a, you know, it is a, one, it's a lot of money, and two, we are making a significant decision in terms of just going to a sole, what we're classifying as a sole provider. The information that we provide in the report, it would be good to have a little bit more analysis into why we're not going with an InfoTrack or InfoTrack for part of the information, because that's, you know, the open data policy set up by the state government means that there are a whole lot of commercial providers out there. And just going to SciTech, which is a state government-owned organisation. Anyhow. So well, I think we'll run with that as it stands, but I think in the future when we go through this, a bit more analysis around, you know, why not other solutions when we make those decisions.
Take that on board.
So in that context, that council resolves it is satisfied under section 235A of the Local Government Regulation 2012 regulation that the exemption under section 235A of the regulation applies, and that SciTech is the only supplier reasonably available to it to provide various regulatory services or reporting for the following reason. One, SciTech provides a one-stop shop for the regulatory searches required by council in the various business processes undertaken. SciTech is a business area of the Department of Housing and Public Works. Let's move on. Item 12, lease renewal to the State of Queensland represented by the Public Safety Business Agency Rural Fire Services, part of Lot 2, Pine Mountain Road, Pine Mountain.
So this report seeks approval to enter into a new lease agreement with the Public Safety Business Agency on behalf of the Rural Fire Service over Lease A in part of Lot 2 for a term of 10 years. And a request that the CEO be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the contract to be executed by council. There is actually significant risk to communities reliant on fire protection in this area if the lease is not renewed. It is an essential community service run by volunteers.
Okay, thank you. I resolve that council enter a new lease agreement with the Public Safety Business Agency, PSBA, on behalf of the Rural Fire Service, RFS, over Lease A in part of Lot 2 on SP 102368, on SP 130864 for a term of 10 years. B, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the contract to be executed by Council and to do any other acts necessary to implement Council's decision in accordance with Section 13(3) in brackets of the Local Government Act 2019. Thank you. Item 13, Cherish the Environment Foundation Council Representative. It's pretty straightforward, I think. Yep. And this is obviously just a temporary arrangement until we move to the elected council. Resolve that Cherish the Foundation Limited be advised that Council has nominated Steve Greenwood, Interim Administrator, as Council's representative for the Cherish the Environment Limited Board. Thanks. Rates exemption, item 14.
This report pertains to a rates exemption matter. Discussions have been ongoing since 2015 regarding eligibility of the property for a rates concession and/or an exemption. The matter was most recently considered by Council at its ordinary meeting 21 May 2019 Additional information has been provided in the confidential background paper 2, and it's recommended that exemption now be provided on the eligible properties contained in and subject to the confidential background paper 1. Note this does not alter the previous council resolutions made at its ordinary meeting 21 May 2019 pertaining to the property described in assessment 178541, lot 1 SP 275460.
Yeah, well, a very detailed item and a very long one, so by taking everything into account, I resolve that the resolve as follows. A, that the following recommendations 14F and G made by the Governance Committee on 14th of May 2019 adopted at the Council ordinary meeting of 21st of May 2019 be repealed. They are F, that the property described in assessment 178542 lot 2 SP 275460 not be exempt from rates from 14 May 2015, and G, that the property described in assessment 178542 lot 2 SP 275460 not be granted a concession for rates from 14 May 2015. B, that the property described in assessment 175542 lot 2 SP 275460 be exempt from rates from 5th of June 2015. C, that subsequent to the property described in assessment 178542 lot 2 SP 275460 being determined as exempt from rates from 5th of June 2015, that any residual interest charged on arrears of rates be written off. Thank you. Item 15, Register of Experts with Independent Decision Review Panel.
So this is a report pertaining to the tender evaluation for the provision of Register of Suppliers in urban planning and design, architecture, law, environmental sciences and engineering. Of the 70 responses, see confidential report number 2 where they're all itemised, the evaluation committee has recommended that 62 suppliers be accepted. It should be noted that with the volume of contracts to be executed, award will be undertaken in stages to minimise business impact while improving access to expert suppliers and services mandated under the framework.
Okay, thank you. Look, and I will, just for completeness, I will declare a potential perceived conflict of interest. So I could have it could be reasonably taken to have a perceived conflict of interest in the item, in that almost every one of those experts on that list is is either known to me or I know of or have had dealings with in a professional basis over many years. But I also confirm that there's no personal financial benefit to me, and I'll just participate in the meeting in relation to the matter. And in that context, I resolve that the report be received in the context noted. Let's move on. Item 16, asset valuations, land, buildings and infrastructure assets. Appointed valuer quotation number 14176.
This report pertains to the procurement and evaluation of quotes for asset valuation services of land, buildings and infrastructure assets for the next 4 years. Council's 5-year contract recently expired, and under the provisions of Section 104 of the Local Government Act, quotations were sought to provide services for the next 4 years by the local buy panel. The full evaluation report and matrix is included in attachments 8 and 9. Council updated the original scope as set out in attachment 1, and submissions to the original and revised scope are included in attachments 2 through 7. The submissions were evaluated against the criteria of scope, capability, capacity and past performance and value for money. Confidential background papers supporting the recommendation have also been provided.
Okay, thank you. That I resolve as follows. A, that the request for quotation 14176 for asset valuation services for land, building infrastructure assets for the next 4 years be awarded to Cardno Queensland under the local buy contract. B, that the Chief Executive be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the contract to be executed by Council and to do any other acts necessary to implement Council's decision in accordance with Section 133 in brackets of the Local Government Act 2009. Thank you. Item 17, locksmith services.
This report pertains to a recommendation to appoint a supplier for the provision of locksmith services for a 2-year period with an option for a further 3 by 1-year periods. This request for a preferred supplier arrangement is in accordance with Section 233 of the Local Government Regulation. We request that the CEO be authorised to negotiate and finalise the term of the contract. The confidential evaluation report is provided at Attachment A.
Thank you. Resolve A, that in accordance with Section 233 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council approve a preferred supplier arrangement for the supply of locksmith services. B, that Council resolve under Section 233(7) of the Local Government Regulation 2012, it is satisfied that it will obtain a better value for money by entering into a preferred supplier arrangement for a term of more than 2 years. C, that Council enter into a contract for the provision of locksmith services with the recommended tenderer as detailed in the evaluation report for a period of 2 years, with the option to extend the contract by 3 times further 1-year periods. D, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the contract to be executed by Council and to do any other acts necessary to implement Council's decision in accordance with Section 13(3) in brackets of the Local Government Act 2009. Moving on, item 18, Heritage and Monuments Advisory Committee number 2012. Morning, Mr. Taviot.
Morning, Mr. Greenwood. The item 18 is just the minutes from the last meeting of the Heritage and Monuments Advisory Committee for receiving, with one minor action there for some internal conversations around one of the items.
Okay, thank you. I resolve A, that the minutes of the Heritage and Monuments Advisory Committee number 2012 be received and noted. B, that the chairperson of the Heritage and Monuments Advisory Committee contact the General Manager, Infrastructure and Environment Department to request a status update on the Indigenous Australian Memorial proposed for Queen's Park. Thank you. Exercise of Delegations Report.
Mr. Chair, the monthly report just outlining the extent of activities occurring in the Planning and Development branch with respect to delegated items.
No, thank you. Resolve that the report be received and the contents noted. Item 20, Court Action Status Report.
Again, the monthly report just outlining the range of items that are on the court list. Various items are in various states of progression through the mediation or the formal court procedure.
Okay. Thank you. Resolve that the report be received and the contents noted. Item 21, Temporary Local Planning Instruments number 1 and number 2 of 2020, Waste Activity Regulation.
Mr. Chair, this report is presented basically from the point of view that Council has recognised that the first TLPI will expire in early April, and given the transition to new council after the election, we just thought that it would be probably very tight for having the matter revisited. So we've approached the state government about bringing forward the reapproval of the item 1, and in the same vein, bundle up TLPI 1 and 2 together and go back to the state and get them reapproved for a further period of time. The preliminary discussions with the state have indicated that there's no major concern with that happening. The content and the aims and objectives of the TLPIs are staying the same, so we're not modifying any of the terms, so to speak. So on that basis, it would, all things being equal, should progress. But we will also just cover off our I's and T's by
If we have to seek ministerial approval during the caretaker period for whatever reason, then that option's being outlined as well.
Yeah, okay, no, they're good. Look, makes absolute sense. It would be a pretty, probably rushed and difficult thing if we're dealing with if this was to be considered by the incoming council.
Correct.
Okay, so in that context, I resolve, A, that council make temporary local planning instrument number 1 of 2020 waste activity regulation in brackets as detailed in attachment 1 to the report by the manager city design dated 10 January 2020. B, that council make temporary local planning instrument number 2 of 2020 waste activity regulation in brackets as detailed in attachment 2 to the report by the manager city design dated 10th January 2020. C, that temporary local planning instrument number 1 of 2020 waste activity regulation in brackets and temporary local planning instrument number 2 of 2020 waste activity regulation in brackets as detailed in attachment 1 and attachment 2 to the report by the manager city design dated 10th January 2020 be forwarded to the Minister for State Development, Manufacturing, Infrastructure and Planning, requesting the Minister approve the remaking of the TLPIs in accordance with the provisions of Section 23 of the Planning Act 2016 and the Minister's guidelines and rules with an earlier effective date of 7th of April 2020 in accordance with Section 9(4) in brackets of the Planning Act 2016. I'll need a rest here soon. D, that temporary local planning instrument number 1 of 2020 waste activity regulation and temporary local planning instrument number 2 of 2020 waste activity regulation in brackets be forwarded to the Minister for Local Government, Racing and Multicultural Affairs, requesting the Minister approve the remaking of TLPIs in accordance with the provisions of Section 90B in brackets of the Local Government Act 2009 as exceptional circumstances apply, and it is in the public interest for council to remake the TLPIs during or immediately after the caretaker period for local government elections 2020. Thanks, Peter. Item 22, draft SEQ koala conservation strategy and habitat mapping. It looks as though the mapping's pretty rough.
Yes, it is. Mr Chair, the state have been having conversations with local government over the last period of time with respect to a range of initiatives relating to koalas, and one of them has been the release of the draft SEQ conservation strategy. We've been asked to provide some comments on the document and the mapping. The issues are outlined in the report with respect to the mapping and how it needs a bit more fine tuning in some areas with respect to the Ipswich City Council area. Generally, the principles within the draft strategy with regard to koala conservation are fairly admirable and worthy of support, no doubt. A bit of the devil in the detail when the matter's translated into planning controls as to how the koala protection areas will be addressed through the regulatory regime is still to be worked through. But at this present time, our report back to the department will be as outlined in the attached report.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think there's a lot of, there is potential for a number of those proposals from the state government resulting in additional regulatory compliance activities for council, and obviously no doubt we'll be have a key eye on what those are going to actually be, particularly when it comes to dogs.
Correct.
I saw. Thank you. I resolve A, that the report be received and the contents noted. B, that the contents of the report by the manager city design dated 13th of January 2020 be used to inform a submission in response to the state government's draft South East Queensland Koala Conservation Strategy 2019 to 2024. Thank you. Item 23, review of the domestic waste collection policy, temporary cancellation of the domestic refuse and recycling collection services policy and use of driveways as turnaround areas. It's a good title there, Charlie.
Okay, so item 23 is in relation to a review that was undertaken in regards to policies relating to waste collection. The review was basically undertaken to gain alignment with current legislation, provide some clarity around terminology and process, and to also consolidate some of the policies that are currently being utilised. So, effectively, the domestic waste collection policy has been updated to include provisions so that the collection area can be designated, which excludes dwellings that aren't occupied, or aren't occupiable, I should say. It's also so that changes have been made so that the rate for the service is changed as an access or availability charge rather than a fee for service charge. And the other major significant change is that provisions from the driveways and turnaround areas for domestic waste collection service vehicles policy have been included into the new domestic waste collection policy. So in summary, the recommendations are that the existing domestic waste collection policy is repealed, that the revised as attached policy, domestic waste collection policy be adopted, the temporary cancellation policy be repealed, and the use of driveways as turnaround areas for domestic waste collection vehicles policy be repealed.
Thank you. I resolve A, that the policy titled Domestic Waste Collection Policy as detailed in attachment 2 to the report by the Senior Business Advisor dated 29th of October 2019 as per resolution number 06.02 of the Health and Sport Committee of 20th of January 1998, adopted at the Council Ordinary Meeting on 28th of January 1998, be repealed. B, that the policy titled Domestic Waste Collection Policy as detailed in attachment 3 to the report by the Acting Ipswich Waste Services Manager dated 29th of October 2019 be adopted. C, that the policy titled Temporary Cancellation of the Domestic Refuse and Recycling Collection Service Policy as detailed in attachment 4 to the report by the Senior Business Advisor dated 29 of October 2019 as per resolution number 4 of the City Management and Finance Committee of 23 June 2015, adopted at the Council Ordinary Meeting on 30th of June 2015, be repealed. D, that the policy titled Use of Driveways as Turnaround Areas for Domestic Waste Collection Vehicles Policy as detailed in attachment 5 to the report by the Senior Business Advisor dated 29 October 2019 as per resolution number 3 of the City Management and Finance Committee of 12 February 2013, adopted at the Council Ordinary Meeting on 19th February 2013, be repealed. Thank you. 24. This gets exciting.
Yes.
Over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report concerns the development of business case to address congestion, cross-river connectivity and network resilience in the Ipswich City Centre. This project is referred to for planning purposes and known in the community as the Norman Street Bridge. The business case has been developed in accordance with Building Queensland business case framework, and the strategic and preliminary stages of the business case are now complete. The preliminary business case recommends 2 new river crossing options be taken forward for further consideration into the third and final stage of the business case, which is referred to as the detailed business case. It's not my intention, Mr. Chair, to go through all the background and details of the report. I'll take those as read. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, the report makes a number of recommendations.
Yeah, I think just a comment on that, and taking into account that we've just adopted the policy on advocacy, and taking into account the stage of the political cycle that we're in at a state level. If there's never an opportunity to get the detailed business case funded very soon, this is it. So is Ali there? I'm sure she's all over this.
In regards to the funding?
Yeah.
I think through the chair, I think you'll find that sits more with the advocacy team on passing the buck to my colleague here.
Yeah, no, so what I'm saying is, we've got coming up to a state election. This is very clear. There's strong support. If we can't get some sort of a commitment from all sides of politics in moving this forward, we're never going to do it. So it's a prime hunting time, isn't it? Okay. In that context, I resolve A, that Council note and endorse the findings and recommendations of the strategic business case and the preliminary business case. The Council support the submission of option 8 for assessment under Council's new regionally significant project prioritisation process. C, that Council supports the production of a newsletter and visualisation video based on the latest information from the preliminary business case. D, that Council support the submission of the strategic business case and the prelim business case to the Department of Transport and Main Roads. E, that Council support the submission of the strategic business case and the preliminary business case to Infrastructure Australia. F, that Council seek funding and support from the Queensland Australian governments to undertake the detailed business case stage. G, that Council support the commencement of the detailed business case to confirm the final preferred option. Thank you. Item 25.
Thanks.
Marsden Parade. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr Chair. This is in relation to a capital project which is part of the 19-20 financial year program. It's the construction or upgrade of an intersection with the inclusion of signals. The intersection is at Brisbane Street, Gordon Street and Marsden Parade as part of our overall transport plan for the CBD area. The report is presenting to Council a recommended tenderer being BMD Constructions for the delivery of the project. It's gone through an open tender procurement process with a qualitative and quantitative evaluation, and the reports are attached as a confidential report, also attached with all the details. So the recommendations are basically that the recommended tenderer enters into a contract with Council, a lump sum contract, and that tender is BMD for the value of $1,977,555.03, and that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the contract.
Yeah, thank you. Resolve A, that tender number 13087 road realignment and signalisation, Marsden Parade Ipswich project be awarded to BMD Pty Ltd under an AS2124 lump sum contract. B, that Council enter into a contract with BMT Constructions Pty Ltd for the sum of $1,979,555.03. I'm really pleased we've got the 3 cents. That's anyhow, excluding GST, as per the proposed works as specified in the project documentation. C, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the contract to be executed by Council and to do any other acts necessary to implement Council's decision in accordance with Section 13(3) in brackets of the Local Government Act 2009. Thank you. 26, Brisbane Lions lease. Morning, Sean.
Thank you, Mr Chair. This report relates to the Brisbane Lions Stadium and the community sporting fields referred to as the Northern Sporting Fields, sports fields at Springfield. This is something of a technicality is what we're looking at. So council entered into a heads of agreement or an MOU rather with the Brisbane Lions some years ago for the development of the stadium. There was a report put to council last year in relation to linking the two sports fields there, which are development areas 22A and 22B. 22A is the primary site of the Lions Stadium. 22B will be a community use stadium, but will be leased by the Brisbane Lions, who will then manage that and maintain that on behalf of council. As previously stated in that report, this is a beneficial outcome for the community because that secondary field located on development area 22B will be developed ahead of time, ahead of schedule from a council perspective and to a higher standard for the community to use in that area. This is seeking an exception under the procurement rules effectively, so those assets are considered as valuable non-current assets and we can create a resolution from council to lease those to the Brisbane Lions as a community organisation without the requirement of going to a tender or an auction for the disposal of those assets. Important to note, Brisbane Lions are considered a community organisation, which is significant. Their charter effectively states that they are a not-for-profit organisation. So even though it is a professional sporting team, the organisation itself is not-for-profit and is considered a community organisation. That has been confirmed through general counsel within council and external legal advice as well.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. I resolve 1 that pursuant to sections 236 1B2 in all in brackets of the Local Government 2009, Council resolve that an exception is applicable for the disposable valuable non-current assets, namely development areas 22A and 22B, to a community organisation, namely the Brisbane Bears Fitzroy Football Club Limited, trading as the Brisbane Lions. 2, that Council enter into an agreement for lease with the Brisbane Bear Fitzroy Football Club Limited, trading as the Brisbane Lions for development areas 22A and 22B. And 3, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the lease agreements for development areas 22A and 22B. Great, thank you. Item 27.
Thank you, Mr Chair. This relates to a tender consideration plan that has been prepared in relation to the provision of effectively services to the buildings that council owns in the Ipswich Central Precinct. This has come about as a result of the closure of Ipswich City Properties under the administration in June. At that time there were approximately 20 to 30 providers to Ipswich City Properties and those contracts were novated across to Ipswich City Council. The majority of those have been transferred across to council contracts under proper procurement processes. However, there's a remaining 4 there that need to be tendered out and brought back in accordance with proper procurement processes. This is a tender consideration plan seeking an extension for those, so they're just on a month-by-month basis is the extension that we'll seek whilst we finalise the actual procurement processes for those 4 services. Okay. I think you see it's aircon services, lift services, management of the car park. Those will be the final 4 steps of effectively the closure of Ipswich City Properties.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. I resolve as follows. A, that Council resolve to prepare a tenant consideration plan for the term of engagement extension of a number of supply contracts or agreements to which Ipswich City Council is a party to the contract agreement in accordance with section 230 1 in brackets A in brackets of the Local Government Regulation 2012. B, that council resolved to adopt the tender consideration plan for the term of engagement extension of a number of supplier contracts or agreements to which Ipswich City Council are a party to the contract or agreement, as outlined in the report by the project manager dated 30th of January 2020 in accordance with section 230 1 in brackets B in brackets of the Local Government Regulation 2012. C, that council resolved to extend the term of engagement for 4 existing supplier contracts or agreements, which Ipswich City Council is a party to the contract or agreement as listed in attachment 2 for works pertaining to the retail operations of the 2 Bell Street and Ipswich City Square properties on the terms described in the report by the project manager dated 30th of January 2020. And D, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise the timeframe for the extension of the contracts executed with various suppliers as detailed in attachment 2, and to do any other acts necessary to implement Council's decision in accordance with section 13(3) in brackets of the Local Government Act 2009. Thanks, Sean. Item 28.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chair. This is the Nicholas Street Ipswich Central Redevelopment monthly update that is provided through the steering committee and then to council. Highlights obviously on that is that Nicholas Street has effectively, works there have been completed. There's some ongoing works there in terms of defects that are being resolved. That's a standard construction process. There's a defect period where we go through and identify the things the council isn't happy with, so people will see the JMAC Construction is doing some work there over the coming weeks. No significant defects, you're just talking about a few tiles and bits and pieces, so making sure we have a good product. The library, new library building is on track, so the steel framework for that is up. The civic place, the pours of the slabs are progressing well. The administration building is also progressing well. At a high level, we are on budget. The civic space and the library are on track to be completed by the end of this year, and our administration building is 2 weeks ahead of schedule, scheduled for approximately July 2021.
So far so good?
So far so good.
Going very well, actually. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sean. Resolved that the report on the Ipswich Central Program Report number 19, effective to 11th of December 2019, report number 20, effective to 15th of January 2020, be received and the contents noted. Well, thank you. That's the end of the officers' reports. Moving on, P, notices of motion, Neil. Questions on notice, Neil. And I think we'll close the meeting at 10:03. Thank you all.